Hey guys, what is up? This is the Four Awards Podcast. I am Haberdashing, and we're coming to you live, episode 51, The Art of Support. Here again with John Kornstrom, Pseudonaut. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, and we also have our expert in the field of support play, Bloodwater.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Great to have you guys with us here. Mike is out sick here tonight, but we still have Steve Frostbite.
Yo.
And Aaron Dune Spikinator.
What's going on?
All right. So everyone sit back, relax, and let's talk a little bit about support. So if you remember back, it was, I don't know how many.
I think it was episode 11.
Yeah. So not quite a year ago, John, you released the book, The Art of Support.
Yeah, that was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Very long time ago.
And here we are again talking about the revamped version of The Art of Support. So what exactly made you want to, rewrite it?
Remix!
Exactly.
Well, I knew maybe like a couple months ago, I knew that they had just changed so much about the game. Just an unbelievable amount.
What exactly made you want to...
Mainly Dragon was changed, and then Sightstone was limited. And so I knew that I was going to rewrite it eventually, and I had told people that when I first released it, once the game does change, it will need updating. And then I was actually playing Bloodwater. I don't know if it was a normals or a ranked, but somehow
a normal game.
A normal game. I have no clue why. I never play normal games, but like the one normal game I've played this year or like last year, I ran into Bloodwater and we were playing against each other bot lane, and I'm like, wow, he would be a really good person to update the Art of Support with. And so I asked him if he would be interested in something like that. And I think you said something about like you had done, or you were planning to do something like that in the past, or you had worked on something, but you guys never followed through. And so you were pretty much interested.
Yes, I had a friend who he had an idea. It was to interview pro players about how to play top lane, mid lane, and stuff like that, and combine it all into one book. And I was basically the person who was supposed to interview all the pro players and get that information. So it was something really similar to this. So that's why I was interested.
Yeah.
Nice.
We got 5 books and 6 instead of 1.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what exactly?
Wait, are you saying 6 because it's like an updated version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can't count the old one. That's bad information.
Maybe by the time you have
5.
the rest of them finished, we'll have a 6th roll, and Hexakill will just be like the regular.
There we go. New meta, y'all.
Yeah.
I like
no,
it.
probably not.
No.
Anyway.
All right. So before we dive into a lot of this stuff, let's talk a little bit about the changes that have happened to the support role and how they've really affected what supports do now in this season. Let's start a little bit with the changes in vision. So,
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there's been a lot of changes, and vision is one of them. Riot introduced new items such as the Eye of the Oasis, Watcher Sightstone, and Eye of the Equinox. It's really hard to remember the name of those items because I'm not one to build them often. But recently I've been experimenting and I found that they are actually really useful, especially in competitive gameplay, because it's easy to run out of words in competitive gameplay because people are really vision oriented and they play around vision a lot. So they strive to deny your vision and gain vision of different sides of the map. So it's important that one word, it really makes a difference, that one extra word.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with like the slot efficiency of the item or anything like that.
It's also slot efficient because, for example, you can get those ghosties. I forgot the name.
Spooky
Right now.
Ghosts is the technical term.
Frost Queen's
Yeah.
Claim. Correct. Yes, you can get the ghosties and Sightstone, or you can just have Watcher Sightstone. And it really depends on what you're looking for in your game and what your team needs. So usually if you need ability power and maybe chase down potential, if the enemy team has a stealth champion such as Twitch, Evelyn, those the ghosties are really useful against such teams. And if you need chasing potential. But if you're playing around vision, I found Watcher Sightstone to be much more helpful.
Okay.
Very nice.
So for the support role, does not having regular vision wards really impact it too much?
Oh yes, that's another thing. I don't think that's really a problem as long as your team is contributing to controlling the map. That's something that's really hard to accomplish in solo queue because most
Yeah.
players they have a selfish play style and they play for themselves, and most of them have the mentality, I need to carry this game so I can't afford to buy pink words and stuff like that. So I think that not being able to buy stealth words is does kind of hinder the support role a little bit early game, but once you do rush that Sightstone, right now you're kind of forced to rush Sightstone. So once you do get Sightstone, it's not a problem at all. So it just impacts the first 5 minutes of the game.
I must say, as a jungler, I rather enjoy the lack of wards in the early game.
Well, yeah. Except for when, your team dies how many times before you even get a chance to really do much because they don't have wards.
So I think there's a lot we could talk about things that have happened from, I guess, the first edition to the second edition. But I think now is a good time to kind of just break this into an overall discussion of the role itself. So we have a lot of listeners that are trying to learn the different roles in the game, and we have players that are coming in from just installing the game to people who have been playing it for a long time. So one thing that's talked a lot about in the book is this idea of a cardinal rule of support. And I to sort of expand on that, what does a support bring to a team, and what should be a support's goal in order to be successful in League of Legends?
So this is directed towards me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think
Both of you can chime in, though.
I mean,
Both
we
of
can
you.
both go for it. But
Yeah, you guys
go
are
ahead.
both pretty support heavy guys.
No,
go.
Pseudo, you shut your mouth. No, I'm
I'll go
Hey, I
first.
want to take this
Let's listen
question.
to Pink Floyd.
So,
Yeah. Sure, yeah, you can take it. I'll add on to it if you miss something.
okay, thank
when?
when
I really
you beat me to it.
you. When I miss something. Okay, so the question is, what does a support bring to the team? Well, in general, the support's role is to do one of two things. It's to basically help his AD do as much as possible. As a support, you're kind of like a complement to your AD and what your AD does. So you think like there's a few different ADs. You got early game ADs who play the lane very well, and these are aggressive like Graves, Quirky, and you would, as a support. Now it may vary in champion select. Like if you pick an aggressive support who's going to try and control the lane early, like a Thresh or a Braum or a Leona, then you'd be playing much more aggressive with that early game AD to try and boost the strength of your AD. Because early game ADs are not going to typically won't have a lot of late game scaling. Now ADs do have late game scaling, but you compare like a Graves to a Vayne or a Kog'Maw. As a support, you want to use those strengths to your advantage. So you would want to play the lane very aggressively, and you would want to control the lane. A support, Bloodwater knows this, like a support controls the lane. Like it's not really the AD who does anything. He just sits there and farms and harasses when possible, but as a support, you're going to be controlling the lane how you want to control it. So you have to do a few things. You have to control the lane and help your AD as much as possible. And that's actually it, really. And from there, that stems, every other strategy stems from that. If I missed anything, I'll let you add on to that, Bloodwater. But
Sure,
that's perspective.
I can add something on to that. In order to become good at that, the cardinal role, it's something that you must repetitively practice and learn from. So it's something that requires a lot of experience because you can't just go into a game, or if you're starting out at the support role and you're a beginner support, you can't just if you don't have the experience, you can't expect to do well all the time. So it's something that requires a lot of experience and knowledge to be able to pull off properly, if that makes any sense.
Just for clarification, the cardinal rule, because I don't think we explicitly stated it, is you want to maximize your AD's gold while minimizing the enemy AD's gold. So everything you do in lane should be geared towards that as a support. So like warding, you don't want your AD to get ganked, because if he gets ganked, now you're most likely either giving kill gold or assist gold to the other AD, and then your AD's down for the count for a while, so he's going to miss out on a wave, and so when he's dead he can't farm, and he's also losing out on the potential to kill the other people too. That's something a few people overlook. But so and that's just from warding. Then you've got harassing, trying to get kills, zoning so people can farm more easily and they don't miss minions, setting up minions under turret. Really, everything as a support should be geared towards that. And roaming is a special thing, which we'll get into a bit later. But that still goes. It's still in a way. It still leads back into that.
Sure.
I
Go for it.
I think that it's amazing what a good support can do as for carrying the game, because they basically have to do the most with the least amount of resources. And what would you say are the things that a good support can do to manage those few resources best? You know, you have the lowest income in the game usually and things. So what's some of the ways that you can counteract that with your play, or are there other ways in which you really remedy that downfall of the sport role?
That's a pretty general question, so I'll give a general answer. Um, so it comes down to, once again, I would say it comes down to experience and how much you know about the game. A tip I could recommend though is always be thinking about the game, always be thinking about what's going on and what's going to happen next, because that's really important. So you're prepared for that. You don't want to just focus on, let's say, a laning phase, and you're not taking into consideration the enemy jungle ganking you. And if you're perhaps going for an all-in and you get ganked and everything just goes south for you, that's not very good. So you want to keep an open mind. You want to think about everyone, not just yourself. And you want to be proactive. You want to take action and counter the enemy's play, or even make a play by yourself. Perhaps a roam gank, or setting up vision in the enemy jungle and things like that. I think it's pretty general, so I'm giving kind of a general answer.
No, it was a very general question.
And to add on to that, how do you manage the lack of gold as a support? Well, you're never going to be building to carry the game. That's never like, in very few games you'll get very fed as a support and you could actually build offensively, but we're talking like 2 to 4 to 5% of your games. That whatever. I would say 2 to 3% of your games. That's going to happen. So the 95% of your other games that you're playing towards someone who is strong on your team, and it doesn't have to be your AD, because you're not always going to win lane, but your mid could be doing well, your top could be doing well, and your jungler could be doing well. They're not going to be doing very well, but as a support you could make them do very well. And that's more for like mid game and late game, but you would play to the strength of your team. So if you have like a strong mid laner, you would protect him, make sure he can deal his damage. And you can do that because most supports have like a certain utility or a certain part of their kit that helps their teammates. It's not or setting them up to do something.
And I think that really kind of leads into a really good point which is, obviously in solo queue, it can probably be very challenging to play the support role sometimes, especially if your lane partner that you are stuck with is kind of derpy. And so at what point would you say, so say you're losing lane, at what point do you kind of say, you know what, screw this, I need to help, I need to help my jungler, or I need to help my mid lane? What are kind of some of the tipping points or some of the little warning signs you may look for in a game?
So it's funny that you asked this question because this actually happened today. So,
Perfect.
um, so what I would say is one of the signs. Usually, your AD carry dying once in lane is not a big problem at all, because you can always find almost always find a way to get back in lane if your AD carry died once. However, if, let's say, the enemy bot lane is 2-0 or 3-0 above you, as in 2 or 3 kills above you, and you haven't traded any kills or anything, and you're just constantly losing out, I would say just once you get that side stone, or once you get those boots, just work the bot lane and start roaming. Start looking for counter ganks, mainly because you're behind, or even ganks if your solo laners are really ahead. But if your solo laners are behind, I would look for counter ganks. And I think that's roaming is one of the most powerful tools that support has, especially if that support is losing bot lane, because it can really turn
Right.
it can really turn other lanes into your favor. And roaming just does a lot. Having one extra person somewhere else on the map can really impact your allies' solo lanes.
Definitely.
Now, I wasn't going to get into roaming right away, but since we're on the topic, I think makes sense to ask. We talk in the Art of Support in the book. It talks a lot about different decisions that help you decide whether or not to roam, and also about different champions that are really effective. So, what are some different things to keep in mind if you're trying to be effective at roaming as a support? What champions excel at it, and what sort of things do you want to do in order to be successful at roaming?
So the champions that excel at roaming are usually the champions with crowd control abilities. Those can range from Blitzcrank, Thresh, Nautilus, Leona. Braum's okay. I wouldn't say Braum is tier 1, but the ones I listed are pretty much tier 1 champions you can roam with due to the amount of crowd control they have, and due to the fact that they have a gap close. Nautilus has the hook, Blitzcrank has the hook, which can gap close. Thresh also has a hook. Thresh can also walk up and play, which is also kind of a gap close, but not as good as this hook. And I think those are the champions that excel at roaming. Oh, Alistar as well. Wow, I can't believe I missed
Alistar.
that one. Alistar.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
good.
get Leona? Leona
Yes,
too.
I did. I
Ah,
mentioned your
Leona.
girl, Leona.
I
No
love
worries.
Leona.
And what was the other
Nautilus.
question? Sorry.
Okay, so we named some champions
Right.
that are very effective at it. So if I'm playing one of those champions, let's say an Alistar or a Leona or a Thresh, what's a good time in order to roam, and what are some signs you look for in order to decide to roam?
Okay, signs I look for to roam. So this is it really varies on on how the game is going. Um, let's say the enemy jungle is going to gank mid, so you can quickly, let's say you have boots or maybe mobility boots rushed. So your Alistar or your Nautilus or your Blitzcrank, you can, since you have mobility boots and you see the enemy jungler going to mid lane, you can easily just tell your AD that you're going mid, and you can just quickly rotate mid, and you can be there for a counter gank. And counter ganks are probably the most OP. It's probably the most OP thing you can do in the game when the enemy jungle is committing, because when they're committing, they're putting themselves in a bad position. And as you're playing a champion with high amount of CC, such as Nautilus or Blitzcrank or Thresh, as they commit, you use your CC on them. And junglers are very squishy in the early games, so that's probably most likely going to result in a kill for your solo laner, unless your solo laner gets blown up and you make it there too late. So it kind of you have to kind of estimate if you can make it there in time.
Mhm.
And if you can't, I would say don't even waste your time. But if you can, definitely go for that opportunity, because that's one scenario. There's a lot of other scenarios where you can leave lane to roam, but that's one scenario. I would say probably one of the most important ones that you should definitely roam, because mid lane is really important. And if your mid lane gets behind, then that means the enemy mid lane can run top, can run your jungle, can run bottom, and that can really hurt your team's early mid game.
Okay.
I'll add on to that. There's two other scenarios which are pretty common for roaming as a support. One would be right after you shove into turret, and so once you shove into turret, it's going to be 15 to 20 seconds, maybe 10 to 15 seconds until the wave arrives and your AD starts farming again. And until that happens, like, your AD has no reason to be, unless you want to harass under turret, you can go for that. Or if your AD isn't good at harassing under turret, you could just tell him back up, and then you've got 10 to 15 seconds of free time to run up the lane and head mid. And by the time you get to mid, the lane will have just arrived, and the enemy bot lane usually won't play aggressive for like 5 seconds until they catch on that you're not there, unless they see you leaving lane. So that's a really good time to leave, because you can go for the gank mid, and if it doesn't work out, you can still get back to bot in time, and your AD won't miss out on too much CS. Another time is right when if you want to be efficient at roaming, you also want to combine like ganking lanes with other things like placing wards and getting vision. So if you just have recalled to base and you have sightstone, and definitely boots, you wouldn't want to. I really don't think roaming mid lane after a recall is good if you don't have boots, because you're just wasting too much time. You won't be fast enough. But you would head mid, and you could either go for the gank mid lane and then ward afterwards, or ward and then go for the gank. But then you're combining the two, and you're still getting vision out of it, and then you can head straight to bot lane. And because you went from your base to mid, then to bot, it's basically like an extra 20 seconds from going from base to bot. And it's just being efficient with your time.
Yeah.
Making sure
Efficiency
you're
definitely. It seems in line with the cardinal rule about maximizing
right,
AD,
yeah.
gold for the AD. I do want to keep going forward in some of these areas like vision, but I would be remiss if I didn't take things back to what you talk about at the very start of the book, which is right after the cardinal rule. You talk a lot about the importance of map awareness. Now, why is map awareness so important, and why do you stress it right at the start of the book?
And what is the Mila Kunis technique?
Don't hold your pants here.
You know what? We actually don't have. I took that out.
Oh.
We actually have
Ah,
Bloodwater. What did you name? Oh, I've got it right
did
here.
you rename it in the new book?
We renamed the technique. I took that part out and we renamed it, and now it's called Bloodwater's procedure for scanning the minimap frequently and thoroughly. And we also trademarked that, so it has a little TM at the end.
That's almost as good.
Except it doesn't involve Mila
Mila
Kunis.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean, Bloodwater has a lot of sex appeal, so I think it more
True,
than makes
right.
sense.
Well, yeah.
He just keeps a little mirror on the bottom right of his monitor.
All right. So before we derail this any further, guys, why is map awareness so important in the support role?
All right, so map awareness is really important because as a support, you're kind of the backbone for your team. So you want to keep your team aware of what's going on around the map. Maybe you can you won't be sure, but you can kind of suggest in a way that the enemy jungler is there, or they're using a smart ping. Another reason why map awareness is important is because it tells you how to play in your lane or what to do throughout the game. So if you're bot lane and the enemy mid laner goes Mia, and your enemy mid laner is constantly getting shoved in, that just tells you play safe. Don't be aggressive. Don't make plays, because the enemy mid laner could already be halfway towards bottom lane, or even halfway towards top lane, but you don't know because you might not have words. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to constantly scan the map and look at where everyone on the enemy team is top laner, mid laner, whether they have teleport, and all those things, because those are really important. Just scanning the map constantly will improve your gameplay. I can assure you, because
Right.
it's definitely improved mine.
Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between the people who are able to look at the map and know the difference between someone who's, if they can like pinpoint where people are on the map and when they go missing. But how do you sort of transition that into knowing, okay, this person isn't on the map anymore. They're probably doing, XYZ
ABC.
right now, or whatever. You know, how do you sort of develop that ability to say, okay, this is the last I saw them, so they're probably heading down towards my lane, or they're just going back right now.
Once again, I would say this goes to knowledge and experience of the game. If you've been burned by this once or twice, you'll know that you know not to make the same mistake again. So I think it just goes to experience and knowledge of knowing what a solo laner does, what a mid laner does at at certain times throughout the game, and learning from those experiences and knowing how to apply them in future games. I think it all comes down to knowledge and experience.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair.
I'll add on to that. If you can, so you're saying how can you know what someone's doing when they're in the fog of war?
Right.
And that would mostly come down to the jungler, possibly their mid laner. So if their mid laner's been missing for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and the wave's already arrived and your mid laner's pinging MIA, or if he doesn't ping MIA, then he's probably coming down to your lane. You can safely say that. Unless he's recalled. But
50-50.
the way it is 50-50. The way I see it as a support in terms of map awareness, I never really rely on my AD to be aware of the map. When I used to duo with a lot of ADs and I would like Skype with them, I pretty much would not even have them worry about the minimap. I would tell them, like focus on harassing and farming. And if you see something on the minimap, ping it out or whatever. But I would be the one who would pay like sole attention to the map and watch out for threats. So I pay very close attention to the mid lane. And then I would have to say like, okay, is this mid laner coming down? Not sure, but if I haven't seen him for 10 seconds, then I would say, okay, we need to play a little bit passive. In solo queue, you just ping your AD back. And as far as junglers go, you should have some decent vision to have to see them ganking from maybe like 60 to 70% of where they'll be ganking, like their gank paths. So you can't always cover like lane ganks, but you can cover river and tri-bush ganks. And you should just be able to watch out for that. I think that's all I have to add on to that.
Sure. So we've talked a lot about general concepts here. I want to kind of put the focus on the actual start of the laning phase itself, because one thing that you hear mentioned a lot is the importance of the first 2 levels of the laning phase. How nowadays, and there's even been some kind of quirkiness with things like Krugs and Gromp starts lately. Like, why is level 1 and 2 so important in bot lane, and what are some techniques to sort of play the first 2 levels effectively in bot lane?
So level 1 and 2, the reason why they're important is because I wouldn't say they're really easy, but to capitalize on, but it's easy to take advantage of them due to maybe the enemy bot lane is inexperienced, and you kind of abuse the fact that you can do a camp and you can go to lane, kill 3 melee minions, and hit level 2 and zone them for about 1 or 2 waves. I think that's why it's so important, level 1s and 2, because you can quickly, since you can do camps now, you can quickly hit level 2, and you can go for an aggressive play, which will greatly increase the pressure in the bottom side of the map, and it will probably attract a lot of attention, such as the enemy jungler, which is why you do want to be careful when you're doing this, because today I actually did this, and I got cheesed by the enemy jungler right as I went in on level 2, and I ended up dying. But that's something that rarely happens. But it's something that should be kept in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of like it rarely happening, you look at solo queue, especially bronze, silver. This really isn't something that's done all that much. Do you think that it's something that people in those elos could be doing? If so, how do you really do that? How do you start the camp?
How do you start the camp? Bloodwater, I'll let you take that one, and then I want to add on to something else for bronze, silver, gold kind of
Right.
elos.
How you start a camp in bronze or in general?
In general, like walk us through if you're starting a camp at the start of the game here.
I have a feeling I know what the bronze ideology methodology is.
Kill the big one. Don't kill the small one. They just reset. Okay. So the proper way of doing a camp is usually, well, not usually. The proper way of doing a camp is you want your AD to. So let's start with Krugs because there's Krugs and Gromp.
Right.
We'll start with Krugs. So you want your AD to tank 1 to 3 hits maximum. Actually, 1 to 2. 1 to 2, because, and then you want to focus the small one. And you want, okay, so you want to focus, I'll start over. You want to focus the small one, and then you want your AD to be tanking, and you're hitting the Gromp, you're using abilities on the Krugs, you're using abilities on the Krugs, and after your AD's taken 2 hits, you want to switch. So what he's supposed to do is run back a little and keep hitting, kind of orb blocking, and you're supposed to move forward and start tanking the Krugs. And you want to let your AD kill the small one because of the Feast Mastery, which will give him extra health. And after you tank about 3 more hits, you can switch again, because by that time he's regenning, and he's also had the proc on the Feast Mastery. So, and he's also life stealing from Doran's Blade and getting health. So you switch back, and then he tanks 2 more hits, and then by that time the Crux should pretty much be dead. So you kind of want to equalize the amount of damage taken and kind of trade it off, but you in the end you kind of want to take a bit more hits than your AD has, because it's more important that your AD has a higher amount of health, because he only has one potion and you have 3 potions. Sorry if that was a little confusing.
No, it's fine.
Really explain this much.
No.
Does that really change at all depending on the support you're playing and the starting item you have? Like specific, like for like Targon's that item, are you allowed to tank a little bit more since you can regen?
I would say that's a bad idea, because if you tank a lot, then you're probably going to end up being about half health, and you don't want to be about half health as you walk into lane, because the enemy could, maybe they didn't do a camp, so they can just walk up and punish you and zone you off the wave. And if you're a melee support, you're going to be forced to walk up and to fight back. But if they're a ranged support, they can just use their range on you and harass you. So that's why bot lane is so delicate between levels 1 and 2. And it's really hard for inexperienced players, I would say, to know when to do a camp and when not to do a camp and which matchups. And I would say, I think I'm kind of going off topic here, but I would say against matchups maybe such as Nami or Janna, champions that have a lot of harass early, you should not do camps against those champions if you're a melee champion. But if you're a ranged champion, you can actually do camps against them, because it's easier to fight back as a ranged champion than it is as a melee champion. And for Gromp, should I explain Gromp or?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. You want your AD to take the first 2 hits, and then swap back with you, and you're gonna switch with the AD, and you're gonna tank, and he's gonna keep hitting. But as you're doing that, you kind of want to drag the Gromp down. You wanna auto and walk down, auto and walk down. So what that means is that's gonna make the Gromp follow you. So this means that you get to lane quicker.
Towards the tri-brush, right?
Yeah, and as you're doing that, after you've tanked about 3 hits, you can let your AD tank 1 or 2 more, and by that time, Gromp should be dead. If not, you switch back and you tank, and then it should pretty much be dead by the second time you switch. So, yeah, you do the same thing with Krugs. You pull them as you're going to lane once they get low, because there's the range you can pull is limited, so you can only pull a little, and then you can't pull anymore, or you're gonna reset the camps, and you don't want to reset
Right.
the camps. 'Cause that's
No. So say you're in a matchup, or you just decide not to do a camp start.
Sure.
When is that point where you hit level 2 and you can start, and you can decide, we're gonna go aggro now, if you still have that advantage?
Well, you don't have to. If you go in, you're saying if you go into lane and no one's done a camp.
Right.
Okay, so you don't have to wait until level 2 to be aggro. You can actually be very aggro level 1.
Okay.
A little trick that I've been using a lot in solo queue, which seems to work maybe 60-70% of the time, is you walk into the other support's bush and they trinket it so that they keep vision on you. And then you just walk back into your bush, and they no longer have vision in your bush. And
cheesy.
it's real cheesy.
Cheesy.
I like it.
Nice.
It's really good, and a lot of people fall for it.
Yeah.
And there's not too much they can do about it, because if they want to walk out of the bush, if you're stronger level 1, you need to push that advantage, because if you walk into the bush, if they stay there, then you're AD, and then you can start dealing damage to them. And most supports in solo queue, because they aren't coordinated with their AD, will back up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll ward to keep vision. It's so level 1 you can start out, and if you don't want to do that and you just want to get level 2 early, then you would want to shove the wave. Usually there's like two things. You either shove the wave and focus on like autoing minions, or you focus on harassing. So harassing would be going into the bush,
Right.
to damage to them. And then if you can get their trinket, that's good, but just work on harassing. And then if in lanes where you don't feel like you can harass or win trades, you should focus on shoving the wave level 1 so that you can get level 2 earlier. And you may be up against a lane that has more shove than you do, like a Caitlyn or a Sivir, and they're gonna win level 1. And by win, I mean they're going to shove the lane in faster, and so you're going to have to back up a little bit when they do get level 2, and then you just wait to get level 2, and then it'll be even grounds from there, and then you just look for trading and harassing opportunities like normal.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add on to that, against lanes that shove, it's actually really hard to, let's just say, even if they're level 2 and they're shoving you in, and you're about to hit level 2, and you hit level 2, since they're shoving you in, they're pretty much going to have the wave advantage pretty much the entire time. So against poke lanes, an ideal time to all in is right when the lane resets. Right when the lane resets, just man up and go for it. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting shoved in and keep getting shoved in.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't just man up and all in. You also want to take into consideration, maybe the enemy jungler's here, maybe I shouldn't do this. Or if you for sure know, or you even have a word, you can just go for it because you have a word. Just don't overextend, and you should be fine.
Yeah, let's build a little bit more on that. You're talking about a situation where you're capitalizing on the particular strengths of them and weaknesses of the matchup. What are sort of the things you look for when analyzing like a bot lane matchup, and like how is that going to dictate your play style? The AD carry and the support combinations.
This is something you could do in champion select or during loading screen. The way to analyze it is think about your champion, think about the enemy support, think about the enemy AD, and think about your AD. What are the strengths and weaknesses of each individual champion? How well do you know the limits of each champion? I think that's really important. And how experienced are you with those champions and with the matchup? And kind of before the game starts, you can kind of think about how maybe a certain scenario would go, like a certain trade, maybe level 1 or level 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if from experience, if you know that you're going to win that trade, definitely go for it. But if you don't, it doesn't hurt to try and learn from it, but just make sure you apply that in the future. I think that's what really determines it, the type of champion you're playing, the type of champion the enemy's playing, and what kind of abilities and level spikes and power spikes each champion has.
I've got an example for that. So counter picking is a huge thing for supports. At least that's how I used to win a lot of my matches and climb the ladder, was counter picking or getting at least a favorable matchup, or a matchup that I was I had had experience in, and I knew exactly how to play against the support. Many times I pick a support to counter
Leona.
the. I do. It's gonna be Leona.
Yeah.
But I would pick Leona into Morgana for the pure fact that I knew, because one of the things that you think about, like a question you think about, like strengths and weaknesses, that boils down to like how do you outplay them, how do you win trades, and what kind of like opportunities do you get when to make a trade happen. And I used to bully people and bully bad Morganas so often, even really good ones, when they misused their spell shield.
Hmm.
So I would Ian as Leona. I would wait for the perfect opportunity when their AD and their support, their Morgana, were right next to each other. And that's when I would look for an engage. Because if I E in, the Morgana has to use her spell shield on one. And
Right.
then I just Q the other person. And that was my opening. That was how I outplayed Morgana in lane. And then from there, she could throw down a Q, but my AD would be right there to follow up and get a lot of damage down. Most of the time, she would shield her AD, so I could just focus the Morgana, and my AD would not be able to get to, or Morgana wouldn't be able to get her Q off, and my AD could follow up from there. So, and that could extend to a lot of different examples. One of the examples we have in the book right now is like Lucian Thresh versus Blitzcrank, Misfortune Blitzcrank, and you're looking at it from the perspective of Lucian Thresh, and Thresh has a very difficult time in that lane. For one, Blitzcrank's a very difficult time. Blitzcrank's very good against Thresh, just naturally, and then Misfortune does very very well against. It is very good with Blitzcrank and very good against Lucian.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you have to do to get ahead in that lane or to open up opportunities for you is to bait out the Blitzcrank hook. Get him to hook, get him to use Q however you can. Sometimes that comes down to baiting it. Um, Sometimes that comes down to him just getting bored. You just keep dodging it or just stay out of position. He gets bored. He thinks like, oh, okay, I'll just use it. And then you know like, okay, he doesn't have it for the next at least 15 seconds. And then that's when you want to look for a trade as Thresh. You want to get a hook or you want to get a flay off. Because when Blitzcrank's hooks down, then you know that you can win pretty much any trade. So analyzing a lot of the time, it comes down to how you're going to outplay them in lane. That's one of the big things. But
Yeah.
you take into consideration everything else. But that's a huge question to ask yourself.
So I think we should really make a general point here because we have a lot of different listeners of different skill levels. So what is the general time in which you look to go for trades as a support in lane, and how would that differ if you're playing someone like a melee support as compared to like a range support like a Nami or something like that?
Could you please repeat that? I'm sorry. My cam just screwed everything up.
Yeah, sure. So what are some times that you really look to go for trades as a support in bot lane, and how might the types of trades you go for differ based off of the champion you're playing? Like for example, like a melee support as opposed to like a ranged like support.
Um, well, one of the times you could go for a trade is usually when you have a level advantage. That's one. Where you have
Okay.
the wave advantage. That's another one because it's really hard for them to fight back when you have a wave, and if they commit to you, your minions are gonna aggro on them. So it's gonna be really hard for them to prolong that fight and keep hitting you because in the long run, you're slowly going to win that fight due to your minions because minions are kind of OP if there's more than six minions hitting you, especially ranged ones. Because I think those are broken. And the reason why it's good to go for an all-in when you have a level advantage is because you pretty much have an extra ability. That's why most people try to abuse level 2 when the enemy bot lane is level 1. They also try to abuse level 3 when the enemy bot lane is level 2, and so on. So you have to be really careful of when the enemy might all in you, and you also have to pay attention if you're the one with the lead, with the experience advantage, maybe due to a neutral camp. You have to be, really careful. You have to pay attention to the time when you can all in. Maybe there's the AD's in a bad position, and you can jump in and gap close on them with Braum, W to a minion, and Q them and auto them, and get the stun proc and do a lot of damage. Just examples like that, I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to add on to that, John?
No, I think you just about covered. Minion wave advantage, level advantage. Oh, if you have a health pool advantage, you could
item advantage.
Item advantage.
Summoner spell.
Summoner spells. That comes for all ends that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Item advantage is very important, and health pool is something that I think a lot of people overlook. So like items, you can look in your inventory, you can click tab and say my AD has BF, their AD has a longsword, so we should force trades when possible because we're going to be winning those. That's pretty straightforward. Health pool, if you are both at like 80% and they're at 50%, you should look. You have extra health to maybe kind of you might lose the trade, but if you get them down to 30, 25%, and then you guys are at 60 or 50%, they're going to play very passively because they're very low. And so if you can, even though they're now you're closer in health to them. So like let's say you're 80 and then 50, and then it goes down to like 50 and 25 or 30. When people get low, they get very scared and play very passively and end up actually taking more damage because they're not going to trade back at you anymore. So any opportunities you have to trade from there is even better. So sometimes it's okay if you have a health pool lead to, even if you're a little bit behind in some other aspects, to continue to push that advantage.
Definitely. And one thing I'll add real quick, because I definitely want to keep things moving, is, as a support, or really anyone in bot lane in general, make sure you're keeping track of the minions. And when you said minions health, like if an AD carry is going to go for a last hit, that's often a time they're very vulnerable. That's often a time where you can look for a trade. But everything else, definitely completely accurate. But what I really would be remiss once again if we went this far and we didn't start talking about wards.
Yeah,
wards.
So I guess to start things off, how does the support fit into how does warding fit into the role of the support? I guess I'll leave it pretty open-ended because there's a lot of ways to go with it.
Well, easy. I mean, they're really the only ones who are supposed to ward, right? Because I need my Infinity Edge.
Obviously, but there's a lot of changes, and this is another thing that has changed a lot since last time we talked about the auto support. The support still fits a similar role in the warding paradigm, but I feel it's a little bit different. So could you guys elaborate on some of those changes, I guess, and where the support fits into that now?
Sure, yeah. I believe that I know that the support is the main person on the team that should ward, that should focus on warding. But I also believe that it's also other people's job to ward, such as the jungler. A popular jungle item, Tracker's Knife, is really good for competitive junglers because you get 2 words and you can use those words that last for about 3 minutes into the enemy jungle, and it really helps because you have knowledge of the enemy jungler. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that. It's still mainly the support's job. You should rush Sidestone. You should focus on warding early, but also other people should contribute. Your jungler.
Just to kind of elaborate on that, any tips on what trinkets supports should get, like, to start, and versus what they should maybe change into as the game goes on? Is it like a really game by game basis, or is there like any pretty set rules for it?
There's not a rule. I just do the same thing every time because that's what works best for me. At the beginning, you want to start with the wording totem, and I hate to go off topic, but before you do a camp, you should always use your word early, maybe about 45 seconds in. You should use your word so you have knowledge of whether the enemy team might invade. And it just helps you a lot.
So say you're You are blue side, and you expect the enemy jungler to be starting on their Gromp. Where are you looking to place your ward?
Well, at 45 seconds, I would just place my ward outside of the Raptors ramp on the left of Dragon, if you know what I mean. There's
Yeah.
kind of that lonely brush in the middle of the river. That's right in front of, right next to mid
The
lane.
bush of death.
I wouldn't call it that. But
That's its
yeah.
official name. That
Really?
little tiny like spot of bush. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bush of death.
Oh, I don't know.
Just like
But
there's the
that's where I would
Fnatic
place
bush,
it
there's
for.
the banana bush, there's.
Oh,
I guess it's. I want to call it the Scara bush, but it's not.
I think that's the one below Dragon or to the
Yeah,
right.
the Scar Award, yeah, for the try. Anyways, you talked a little bit about Sidestone. Is there ever a situation where you are not looking to rush that item?
Yes. That would be when you're playing a champion with a huge roam potential, such as Alistar, Blitzcrank, or Nautilus, even Thresh. Because, like I said earlier, they have such a high amount of CC and gap closing potential that you could greatly impact another lane, such as mid lane, or even the enemy's jungle, just by roaming. And brushing those boots, it definitely offers you, provides you with the ability of roaming and getting to another lane quickly, or even reacting to an enemy play that's going on and just making a counter gank or something like that.
I can't remember if we said it before, but we're talking about mobility boots, correct?
We mentioned mobility boots.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So what I wanted to ask about is pink ward usage, because pink wards have definitely changed a lot this season. They're cheaper now, and you can't buy green wards. So in the early game, as a support, if you back and you buy a pink ward, what are some like smart ways to use your pink wards effectively? And what are sort of their purpose in the early game?
So the purpose of pink wards is to usually either push your advantage. You can use pink wards defensively in order to kind of deny the enemy vision. And denying the enemy vision can also be an offensive strategy. So there's two uses for defensive purposes and offensive purposes. And usually you want to buy them right after Sightstone. Or if you don't have enough money for Sightstone, just get the Ruby Crystal, get some potions, and get that pink word. And good places to place the pink word would pretty much be, if you're winning bot lane only, I would use my pink word in the lane bush, right near the back. The reason for that is because usually supports, when they're losing, they would tend toward the lane bush due to jungle ganks and things like that. So that can really enable your jungle to come through lane and gank in case the enemy jungler is ganking bottom lane for them through lane. And that, due to that vision denial, you can easily just keep pressing your advantage. Or due to you having a pink word there, the enemy jungler might say, "Oh, screw that, I'm not going bot lane. They have no words and they're just getting wrecked. So I'm not wasting my time." So I think the two main purposes of pink words: push your advantage and deny the enemy vision because you're getting wrecked.
All right. So we talked about vision early. Now let's move the game forward a little bit more. Vision is kind of a dynamic thing in League of Legends, and a lot of times where you're going to ward is going to vary based off of the game you're playing. So how do you decide, once the mid game hits, where do you want to start to get vision on the map, and how might you alter where you're placing vision based off the state of the game?
So throughout the mid game, just focus around. First of all, think about the game. Are you winning? Are you losing? Are you winning by a lot, or are you kind of getting crushed? Or is your team getting crushed? So once you figure that out, then you can decide where to word. And if you're winning, let's say you're winning, and the game's about even, but you're a few or several kills ahead. So you have a a few thousand gold advantage. So you want to focus on getting wards not too deep in their jungle, kind of borderline between the map, but you want them to be a little over the edge of the middle of the map into their side of the jungle. And you just want to focus on general spots such as, let's say your blue side. You want to focus on general areas such as the enemy raptor area. There's a specific word spot that's kind of tricky. I can't really explain it verbally. And you also want to focus on the red buff, that upper side of the map. Or if you're controlling the bottom side of the map, you can focus on their Gromp, their blue buff, and even around mid lane. So those are just general places to work.
John, before you finish this, I just want to pop in and quick say this is one of my favorite things about the last artist support, and I'm going to assume you guys are doing a lot of the same stuff for this one. The amount of illustration and stuff that you guys put in to better illustrate, where you are supposed to be warding exactly, really helps you pin down that sort of stuff. So that's, if there's one big plug I can make for the book and a reason to get it, it's just for those great illustrations, and it really just helps, better sell the ideas that we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we've gone through. Buddy of mine's have spent maybe 8 or 10 hours this past week just remaking them all, and they
nice.
look nicer. And of course, we had to update all the spots.
Right.
One of the things with warding is really what objective or what are you trying to accomplish, and then how can your warding help you do that? I know for a lot of times, I don't think this happens too often in solo queue when you're not playing with someone, but or when you're not duoing with someone. But if you are playing with an AD, when you get that lead and you know that you're going to keep pressuring the lane, you would want to ward inside of their. If you're on blue side, you would ward right under their Gromp, and you would ward on their blue because you need vision of their jungle to continue pressuring the second tier turret. If you're getting pushed in, you need vision in your jungle so that you can see more potential ganks, and then you can leave your AD to farm there, and so you can go roaming. If a dragon's coming up in a minute or 30 seconds, and you know that your team needs to contest it, then you're going to want to get at least some ward on the back of it or right in front of it, so that your team can, if the enemy decides to start it, your team can quickly rotate over. So you should be asking yourself throughout the game, this specifically for mid game, or once you've taken that first tier turret, you should be asking yourself what are you trying to accomplish? And the only issue with that would then be, do you know what the right answer is to that question? What are you trying to accomplish? So I think that would. I'm gonna use Bloodwater's saying that comes down to experience and history from the game.
Yeah.
But warding's just it's a tool to help you accomplish your goals. So you should just be thinking what you need to do in that game, and then ward for it.
Kind of.
It's the best. And for pretty much any objective, it's going to come down to what objective are you going to take next. And we have a lot of illustrations for every single objective. If it's sieging a turret, if it's defending against a siege, if it's dragon, if it's baron, if it's
level 1 invades.
Nice. Defending from defending. Actually, I don't think you ward if you're. We don't have any illustrations of what you do when you're the one invading, but we have wards if you're defending against an invade. And
we have roots you can take when you're invading.
Oh,
and where you can ward.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have when you're defending.
Yeah.
Cheesy.
So, kind of take it off to a different topic here. So, one of the cool things that I find about the support role is that there is such a wide range of champions that you can play and different play styles within the role. What are some tips that you recommend for a player maybe trying to find their favorite champ to play, and personally for you guys, what are some of your favorite champs to play, whether it be, your standard support champs like Thresh or Soraka, or some of your maybe off meta or off key sort of support picks.
Okay. Um, as a starter to the support role, or to finding um, which, or to finding out which support champion fits you best, or which support champion you like the most, play them all. Not once. Play them all multiple times. Figure out their strengths and weaknesses, and figure out which one you have fun playing the most. Which one makes you laugh the most, and stuff like that.
Wukong support
That's-
confirmed. Yes.
if you're looking to find out which support you enjoy the most, play the one that makes you happiest. But if you're looking to find out which is best in certain situations, play them all multiple times, and that'll help you. And as to which is my favorite, it used to be Thresh, but now it's Janna, because she's really good in the meta.
When has she not been good?
Yeah, I know. She's such a pain in the ass.
I know there's times that she hasn't been, but
She's just good right now because there's a lot of assassin picks, such as Zed, and she's really useful. She's really good for peeling. I think she's more of a team-oriented champion than a lane-oriented champion, because there's much more dominant supports you can pick in lane. You can wreck lane and you can still lose the game against the Janna, which is what happened to me once, and I was pretty sad. So that's why I'm leaning towards Janna, or supports that are team fight oriented. Nami, Janna, Soraka, those are all good supports to play.
Yeah. For me, it's like a toss-up between Blitzcrank and Leona.
I knew it.
They're not the best in this meta, but they're really, really fun to play. I had positive win rates on them last season, 2 seasons ago. So
what about Kennen? Because I have never gotten shit on by a support harder than the time you played support Kennen against me.
Kennen is good. He was just at the time.
That was right with like Callista Kennen. That was really big.
Yeah,
it was a pretty strong combo.
Yeah.
I wish Trundle was a little bit better. He's seen some play in LCS, but he's just so difficult to play, and he doesn't really have anything special about his kit. But he's kind of fun to play once or twice.
I think the most useful ability in Trundle's kit would be his pillar. But because it can displace enemies, and you can kind of build a team comp around that, such as a bow comp or something like that, or a catch comp. But his other useful ability is actually his ultimate, because if the enemy picks Trundle can be used as a counter pick, because if the enemy picks Rammus or Mundo or something, you can just pick Trundle, and in team fights you just ult him, and if he runs in, you focus. Well, if he runs in, you ult him, and then you focus him. And you pillar him if he tries to get away, and you should kill him relatively quickly. So that's kind of the use for Trundle in competitive.
What do you think about Trundle against Alistar?
Trundle's the better. In terms of 2v2, Trundle wins against Alistar, because Trundle does more continuous damage. But in terms of jungle pressure, I would give it to Alistar, because Alistar can make the play, flash play, and just execute the enemy AD carry with your jungler.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And if Trundle runs at you, you can just pulverize him and headbutt him backwards.
You don't get the damage reduction from his ult, too.
What I love about this whole conversation, and sadly we're not going to have enough time to get into a lot of detail on this, is that there's so many different champions you can play in the support role for different reasons. We talked about Alistar, we talked about hard engage, we talked about Janna, we talked about disengage, we talked about all these different champions and all these different things that they bring to their team. And so like there's a lot of unique ways that you play a champion. So it's not as simple as saying, you know, I play support and then, you know, I'm always the initiator. Maybe your focus will be on peeling. And there's a lot of cool interactions there that you see a lot of details in this book. So if you're interested in finding out more, I highly recommend you check it out. But Haber, I think we're going to be wrapping up here soon. So is there any last questions you wanted to kind of field to the team?
Well, let's just kind of wrap it up here. If Pseudo, Bloodwater, is there any sort of last little tidbits of information you want to leave our listeners with regarding your book or about support in general?
You can
So-
take this one first, John.
I'll take it first. So the book's gonna be out. Its official title is gonna be The Art of Support, second edition,
Electric
Uh,
Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo, with me, Pseudonaut, and Bloodwater, and it's gonna be out in, I want to say, a week to a week and a half, and you can find it on theartofleague.net, and it will be available as both you can get it as an ebook, or if you're the kind of person that wants it as a paperback, that's going to be available too. And maybe down the road, we're gonna find someone with a very, very sexy voice, and we're gonna make an audiobook.
Paging Black Anola.
Yeah.
So any last comments from you, Bloodwater?
I would say that working on this book has definitely opened up my mind about the game. It made me think about some things that I haven't thought of before, and it actually I learned a little from this book as well.
Nice.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
Because you'd think that someone as experienced as me, having played on different teams and gone to LCS and even Worlds once, would know almost everything about this game. That's not the case. There's some tricks and techniques that I learned from this book, and I enjoyed reading it. I found it really entertaining. So I would definitely recommend it if you are going to be playing the support role and you want to learn more about the game. And even if you're not playing support, I would still say that it's worth buying because there's a lot you can learn just in general about the game and about brawling in general.
All right. Sweet.
Excellent.
Well, thanks again to everyone for joining us here this week. We'll be back to talk more about goals and questions next week. We'll be sure to give you guys exact updates when the Art of League stuff goes live so you guys can pick it up first. I'd like to thank John, Pseudonaut, and Bloodwater for coming on the show. You guys have been great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see all you guys next week.
Later.
See ya.